Picture this, you're the mid laner, pushing the wave and putting an immense amount of pressure on the opponent, poking them on the turret and zoning them from CS. And then this happens.
Whoa, what the fuck, bro? Jeez, dude, okay. Shit, man, my bad.
Then after that, people start showing up mid so often that you may believe the enemy laner is playing a summoner class. You're playing the jungler, happily clearing your merry little camps when a big anchor flies at you, CCs you for 10 seconds, and now the enemy jungler gets a kill on you and steals all your camps. I was going to write a scenario for top lane as well, but nobody goes top lane anymore. The truth is, the ADC is supposed to be a carry champion. Most mid laners are carries by design. But you know what? Before 15 minutes, the real carry is the support. And if you've been playing this game for a while, you must know why that is. Support is the only role in the game who can get level 3 and just leave the lane to roam and make plays wherever they want. Leaving your ADC to fend off for themselves? No problem. If the enemy lane doesn't have hard engage, your ADC just gets to have solo experience. Meanwhile, you can flash on the enemy mid laner to get a gank off and tilt them for the rest of the game. You can help your jungler secure early scuttle crabs, and you can even go top lane just to get the enemy top paranoid that you might show up again. No other role in the game has this much agency while sacrificing so little. The jungler gets close by being able to skip camps to gank at unpredictable times from unpredictable spots. But that's the thing, they are sacrificing the time that they could have spent farming. After all, there are only a few junglers in the game with good enough clear speed to always have the spare time to gank while all camps are down. The support doesn't have that responsibility. The only real sacrifice that they make is leaving their ADC vulnerable for a short window. But if we assume that the ADC is minimally competent, I know, not the most common sight, there's a high chance that nothing bad will happen. So why is the support granted all this? Why do they get to decide how bot lane goes for the entire early game and get to impact the rest of the map for no consequence? Well, let's just get 2 quick points out of the way. The ADC themselves can't control the game from the start because they are a scaling role, where it's mostly scaling champions being played, with the exceptions of Draven, Yasuo and Lucian somewhat. As for top lane, they're just too far away from where most of the action happens early on, and walking or even teleporting all the way to Drake and bot river fights would leave them at a golden experience deficit due to being away from lane for so long. Mid lane suffers from a similar predicament as top lane, but they aren't isolated in terms of distance. Instead, what happens in mid lane is that the champions who are commonly played there are hard scaling picks. Unless it's something like a Talon or Galio, the mid laner's ideal scenario is to just shove waves and get monster CS, so they can get the 3 items and actually exist as a real champion. So roaming is also heavily punished if it ever doesn't result in a kill. So what remains is that early to mid game, it's the jungler and the support who will be the main roaming champions on the map. Alright, seems fair. I mean, the jungler has camps to clear all over the map, and if a gank opportunity shows up, they can go there and do their job. For the support, it's their role to support the whole team, so it makes sense that they can roam early and have a lot of impact. Now, I don't want to be the contrarian, but for this video, I will be the contrarian. Supports whose names don't start with an S get way too much done early on for how little they sacrifice for that agency. Say what you will about junglers deciding every game, but if they fall behind, they fall behind. One of the biggest detriments to any league match is to have a losing jungler getting invaded all the time while his laners keep getting ganked and can't do much to help. So in a sense, the price that junglers pay for all that agency is that if they make any mistakes, they will be punished tenfold, to the point where the game becomes unplayable not just for them, but for the whole team. The support, however, gets to have just as much agency and map impact early, but without the responsibility of farming camps or lanes, nor the fear of getting set behind and losing the whole game. It doesn't matter if the Blitzcrank is 5-0 or 0-5, if you get hit by the hook, you probably won't have time to wave goodbye. A jungler can't just afford to make that many mistakes without becoming irrelevant and being snowballed on by the enemy team. Now the way this works for different classes of support is a little different. In my opinion, as well as the opinion of high elo players, the support role is too strong in a few different ways. The first one is the one we talked about so far. Too much early impact with their roams. The kind of support that can do that stuff are usually engaged supports. Stuff like Thresh, Nautilus, Alistar, Leona and Pyke. I'm also counting Bard here because he does the whole roaming thing with mobility boots. You could be playing perfectly in mid lane, but if Alistar flashes on you and dives with the jungler and enemy mid, you might just be dead no matter what. And the only thing that could save you is your own jungler or the support, both of which are outside of your control. That kind of interference will mess up the other lanes for the rest of the game, and by the time that Nautilus or Rel fall off and aren't that tanky anymore, the damage is already done. As for the squishy ranged support, the enchanters, there's a different problem. What if you took the nuclear megalodon ultra kill glass cannon DPS class and took away the glass part? and just made it a nuclear megalodon ultra kill cannon DPS. That is the Enchanter's job. Through healing, shields, movement speed, disengage, or all of the above combined, Enchanters turn their ADC into a ranged, hyper-scaling raid boss. And yeah, they can also roam a lot. Just watch any high healer mid laner stream and there's about a 40% chance that the enemy Janna is on their lane at any given moment. Enchanters like her, Nami and Lulu can still roam no problem. They just don't put the same amount of paranoia on the mid laner as a Pyke or Nautilus would. The difference between them and the engaged supports is that their early game kill pressure is not as strong, so they usually want a slower, more passive lane where they can scale in, which means they don't get to do exactly what they want around the map early on. Don't get me wrong though, that weakness doesn't last very long because of this thing, the ranged support item that grants them gold when poking enemy champions or hitting turrets while near an ally. The champions that build it are balanced around having a low income, but until you finish upgrading this thing, their income is actually really damn high. Xerath, Lux and Vel'Koz are viable in the support role because of how much early gold they get from this. But I digress. My point here is that the support role seems like it's too strong for what it should be. You've heard me ramble for however many minutes now, so let me ask you a question. Why do you think support seems so strong? Is it because the role is overpowered? Or is it just because it's an easy role? It's no secret that Riot made it easier for new or auto-filled supports to get into the role because otherwise nobody would want to play it. So then, what you have is a role that when performing poorly, at least won't solo lose the game, but when performing really well can easily carry it, making it a low-risk, high-reward playstyle if you know what you're doing, unlike the high-risk, high-reward of jungle. I don't know if there's anything that can be done to mitigate the impact of a support spam ganking mid and top lane, and frankly, I'm not sure if anything should be done at all. I think it's a cool thing that the support spreads out their utility to the entire game, rather than being stuck bot lane with the ADC until teamfights break out. Despite that, I think there should be some better mechanism of punishing that roam heavy playstyle in case it goes wrong. If we're talking about pro play, then of course, just dive the ADC 3v1 bot lane with the jungler. But in solo queue, that's much harder to coordinate. So the only measures that could work would be punishing that roam with experience nerfs. If mid and top lane minions gave reduced shared experience for the first 10 to 14 minutes, then there's a high cost for roaming and not getting a kill, since you'd be put behind in experience and also drain some experience from the mid or top laner. If you do get a kill, you would have enough experience to compensate for that anyway. So there's less of an incentive for the Janna and Nami to just be AFK in the lane putting pressure on the mid laner all the time. So, are supports too strong, too easy, or both? Or is it just my brain rot from watching one too many Nemesis streams? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.